देश दा इतिहास
History of graves is not history of a nation. 1947, 1984, Bhivandi, Godhra, Nandigram, they all ask.
कब्रां च पे पिंजर
Bones, skeletons, we are heroes of which history? Why were we made to face bullets? Buried in these graves, whose sons, daughters, mothers, fathers are
किस
we?
दियां धीयां किस दियां मावां ते किस दे बाप हां
By now, scars of rapes of our time must have been washed in the rain of politics. And if that thirsty and hungry woman survived, she must be wandering the lonely streets. And winds circulating in the silence of deserted houses must have turned lunatic. Tell us, who plays this game with us again and again? Whose hands are those that alternately carry saffron, blue, red, green, and sometimes discolored flags? History of the graves is not history of a nation.
Sutinder Singh Noor was born on October 5, 1940 at Kotkapura in the Faridkot district of Punjab, where he also had his initial learning before shifting to Ambala cantonment for further school and college education. He obtained his master's degree in English literature from there in 1967 and then moved to the Patiala University for another post-graduation, this time in Punjabi language and literature, which he attained with distinction in 1969. Thereupon, he was appointed a lecturer. While teaching in Patiala, he also obtained his doctorate in 1976. Later, he joined the University of Delhi, first as a lecturer and then as professor and head of the department, from where he retired in 2005. During his distinguished academic and writing career, Dr. Noor received various citations, honors and awards, both at home and abroad, including the Varis Shah and Bulle Shah Awards, Denmark, IAPA Award, Canada, Punjabi Alochna Award, Delhi, Safdar Hashmi Award, Punjab, Param Sahitya Seva Samman, Delhi, and the coveted Sahitya Akademi Award in 2004 for his book of criticism, Kavita Di Bhumika.
During his student days, he was very outgoing, contributing through seminars, through paper readings, through poetry readings, and wherever he went, he brought honor to the college, to the university. And during his student days, he was also General Secretary of the Punjabi Students' Union. Punjabi University Union was formed for the first time, and he was the founder General Secretary. So after that, his progressive politics always remained with him, and that also guided his own critical vision, poetic vision, literary vision. So I would say that overall he was a progressive thinker, progressive not in any dogmatic sense, but in a very broad humanistic sense.
Dr. Satinder Singh Noor was a student of this university, and after passing out from this university, he became a professor of Punjabi in the university. He started his teaching career from this university. Later on, he joined Delhi University as professor of Punjabi and head of the department of Punjabi in University of Delhi. In 2008, he was appointed as professor of eminence in this university, and he continued for 2 terms as professor of eminence in the department of Punjabi. As far as I remember him, I think he made 2 big contributions for the promotion of Punjabi language and culture. One is, in my opinion, he was ambassador of Punjabi language. He was ambassador of Punjabi culture. He was working for promotion of Punjabi language and culture at the national levels and at the international levels. And secondly, I think he was the person who initiated a dialogue between Punjabi language and other Indian languages. I think he will be remembered forever for his biggest contribution to initiate a dialogue between the languages, and particularly as Vice President of Sahitya Akademi, he started a dialogue of Punjabi language with other languages. That was his biggest contribution.
ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਨ ਤੇ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ. No difference between reading a book and loving someone. Some books, we look at their titles and put them away. Their insides bore us. Some books, we keep by our headboards, read them when we wake, with no reason. Some books, we read word by word, get lost in them, read them again and again, absorb them in our souls. Some books we mark with colored pencils, enjoy each line. Some books we are afraid to mark, their pages too delicate. No difference between reading a book and loving someone.
Dr. Noor's writings started to find place in literary magazines and journals much before he blossomed into a path-breaking thinker in Punjabi. His first poem was published when he was barely 14, and he subsequently went on to write countless poems, most of which are contained in 15 collections. In his research and critical writings that are contained in 26 books, he discarded established and outdated academic methodologies by putting across fresh thinking and brought to the classroom new investigations, responses, findings and theories being practiced elsewhere in literature. These had a direct bearing on modern-day learning that determined the problematics of modern literary theory and poetics and advocated their implementation. This often brought him in conflict with the traditionalists. At the time of his death, he was engaged in authoring his literary autobiography.
Oh Ravi, 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 oh Ravi, 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 oh Ravi de kande kande,
ਉੱਚੀਆਂ ਅਟਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਮੰਨੇ ਨਾ ਨਸੀਬ ਡਾੜੇ ਐਵੇਂ ਵਾਜਾਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ। ਮਹਿੰਦਰਾ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੇ ਮੌਲਸਰੀ ਭਵਨ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਂ, ਇਹ ਬੋਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਉੱਚਾ
We
ਹੋ
were
ਰਿਹਾ
singing
ਸੀ।
these lines in Mahindra College's Molsari Bhavan, the sound levels constantly rising. And Satinder Singh Noor lived like a lyric all his life. His life and persona were bound together in the knot of a lyric. My own feeling is that he sang the whole of his life and lived to sing it. This was the most significant aspect of his life. He never allowed traditions, concepts of literary criticism, and all those irrelevant theories that generally get bound together in colorful boxes. This was his biggest color. He advocated that all those micro-narratives are not really small, but big ones. Just as a soul is not really small, but a big one. As one lives, it grows. I still remember him as someone rooted to the ground. And in those Bhutwada days, he would be carrying loads of books. It was the same with all of us, a group of 40. And I feel Bhutwada was an instinct. It was not a movement, as some people said, because movement strikes as something political. Bhutwada is an instinct, a thought, and he carried this source quite far. Wherever he went, wherever he talked, wherever he spoke. Whether it was in Lahore, Delhi, America, and elsewhere in the world, it was the thought that mattered, nothing else. And Noor tried to link everything together and planted the secular image of India. I think this is a great miracle in itself.
गुलों में रंग भरे बादे नौ बहार चले चले भी आओ कि गुलशन का कारोबार चले। सो ਨੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੁਝ ਇਉਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਇਸ ਗੁਲਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ
Now it seems that after Noor's death, the business of this garden is not moving with the same speed, same color, and we miss him every moment, remember him at every step. He thought about my poetry, wrote about it, contributed to my glory, and wanted me to go places all his life.
तो मैं ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਦੋਸਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੀ ਭੁੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ।
So I can never forget his friendship. Dr. Noor was a unique thinker and torchbearer of Punjabi literature and culture, and a lovable human being.
ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਇੱਕ ਅਨੁਵਾਦਕ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਵੀ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ
Apart from that, I recall him as a translator,
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿਆਰੇ
as a fine poet,
ਸਮਝਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਪਿਆਰ
especially his political and romantic poetry.
ਰਾਜਸੀ ਰੰਗਣ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਰੰਗਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ
His love poems, though small, are engrossing.
ਟੁੰਬਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਨੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ਤਾ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ
His biggest asset was that whenever there was something new in world literature,
ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਨਵਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ,
whether literary theories or creation, he would be the first to introduce that to Punjabi literature and culture.
ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੂਰ ਹੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ
This was indeed a rare quality.
ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ।
ਅਚਾਨਕ ਕੁਝ ਦਿਨ ਕੈਲੰਡਰ 'ਚੋਂ ਗਾਇਬ ਸਨ। ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਰਤੇ, ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ। Some days were absent from my calendar. When they returned one by one, I asked, "Where were you?" The first said, "Nowhere except with you, only you didn't see." Second said, "I was in your pocket with your half-written poem." Third said, You were the one who left me like a boring book on a monument. The fourth said, Sir, I am the one who took your message and waited all these days at her door, which remained shut calendar chon gayab din.
Dr. Sutinder Singh Noor firmly believed that literature could become an instrument of change, and most writers were conscious of their responsibility towards that end. But then, literature should not become a vehicle for propaganda. It should not get imprisoned in dogmas and outdated theories. Literature has its own aesthetics that come with social awareness, because good literature is nothing but a reflection of society and its concerns at any given point of time. Widely travelled, Dr. Noor participated in literary conferences in Pakistan, Thailand, China, Poland, Italy, the UK, the USA and Canada, and served as advisor to various literary bodies, including the Punjabi Academy in the capital, in which he served on the governing council. He advised various government and non-government bodies and was also the convener for Punjabi in the selection of the prestigious Gyanpith and Saraswati Awards.
Dr. Sutinder Singh Noor was a great scholar and poet of our era. He had a mission in his life to unite all the peoples of the world through the literature and languages. He strived for the whole of his life for this very purpose, and I think he succeeded in uniting the people of India through literature and culture. He was a great friend, very good mentor also. He used to encourage young writers, young scholars. He was a great teacher also. While teaching in Patiala or Delhi, he encouraged his students to do research, to read more books, and he stole the show while he was the vice president of Sahitya Akademi. He did well by organizing international conferences, national seminars, and I think he came for this only to this earth, and he got success, he succeeded in his mission.
An incorrigible romantic, a lover of all that was beautiful in life, as is evident in his verses, Sutinder Singh Noor lived life to the brim, bypassing obstacles with nonchalance. He was metaphorically and literally the most prominent face of Punjabi literature and culture, and its unofficial ambassador in India and abroad. He was an ever helpful and committed friend, the complete family man, a caring husband, a loving father, and an indulgent grandfather. And above all, he was almost wedded to the written word, always yearning to gain more information and knowledge that he loved to disseminate.
Dr. Noor was not only my teacher, he was a wonderful friend. Whereas I remember I met him in 90s. They invited me as a poet in the Punjabi department of Delhi University, and when I went there and I recited some poems, I felt it's a wonderful environment, because earlier I was only a homemaker. I did not have much literature and books of Punjabi, so I used to come to his place. He taught me, because I was totally ignorant about the literature. So he taught me how to read, how to study the things from base, from our culture and from our traditional readings about Gurbani and everything. His insight was so sharp. Whenever, whatever you want, he will create a space for that thing. Dr. Noor's memory was wonderful. I used to tell him that you have a floppy inside your brain. It has a data of all the world and all the epistemology and blah blah blah. You know, he was a wonderful person. He was a very dear friend to everybody. But this was his quality. And of course, I like his poem the best, that is Kavita nu uggan deo, let the poetry grow. And there he used the similes like a tree, like a bird, like a flower. So this was his nature.
ਕਵਿਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਗਣ ਦਿਓ. Within you, let the poem grow like a tree, and let that tree talk to the wind, the sunshine, the falling rains, the storms. Let the birds get lost in the hollows of trees, to chirp there and make their nests. Within you, let the poem grow like a wild flower, which looks up to the sky, blooms fragrantly, breathes free air, subservient to none, and in the wilds hails the caravan miles away. Within you, let the poem grow like the sun, which in no time spreads over the woods, the flora, the rivers and seas, holding fire in its breast, talking to the cosmos, beam by beam, wends its way. Within you, let the poem grow like the moonlit night, in whose sweet rhythm we get wet up to our soul, spread up to the horizons in the silent, dark night, the goblets of fair beams. Do we drink deep up to the dark nooks of the heart? Within you, let the poem grow like a tree, like a wild flower, like the sun, and like the moonlit night. Within you, kavita nu uggan diyo.
I had a good fortune of working with Professor S.S. Noor when he was the Vice President of the Sahitya Akademi. I always remember, whenever I think of Professor Noor, he is the serenity and calmness personified, always in a encouraging mood, and his concerns, so far as literature is concerned, is something unimaginable. Even on the deathbed, when I went to meet him, ignoring his ailment, he was asking me about the activities of the Sahitya Akademi, particularly some of the seminars and programs and publications. After he became Vice President of the Sahitya Akademi, he was a tireless traveler in the pursuance of literary pursuits. He travelled length and breadth of the country, attended every other literary meeting organized by the Sahitya Akademi and also organized by various literary associations and the universities. What I noticed in him was that his love towards Indian languages. He was always encouraging the literatures written in different Indian languages. Particularly, he was fond of the Dravidian literature.
ਦੇਖੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਾ
When we talk of Punjabi poetry, there are two ways of looking at it. One is to talk only of Punjabi poetry in isolation, But since no language is in isolation at this point of time, and around this other languages like Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, Urdu, etc., poetry in these languages is also changing.
Sutinder Singh Noor was cremated in New Delhi on 10 February 2011.